Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. How are you, Muhammad?
Good, alhamdulillah. I just want to see, so you can hear me and things. Everything's clear.
Jay, oh, good. We'll just give it until just after 8. I see I
Okay,
accepted one Imam in for now, but then we'll officially start just after 8.
no problem.
Shukran.
At this time of the evening, um, kids are around, so hopefully you won't hear them in the background.
No, don't stress.
In fact, being young, being old, being young, the people that are small, or people.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Imams and Muallimahs. I'd like to welcome you all to this week's Imams Connect session. This week we have a special guest. His name is Professor Muhammad Nakhooda. And his session topic today will be, how can we use AI to better serve our communities? Muhammad Nakhooda is an Associate Professor of Biotechnology. His research expertise lies in the area of cellular and molecular biology, with recent research in synthetic biology in the age of AI. He also works with universities to effectively implement AI strategies to understand and drive student success. In this workshop type session, we will understand how to make effective use of the various AI tools available and what they can offer in the context of imams who serve diverse communities. So I'll hand over now to Professor Muhammad Nakhooda. Jazakallah.
Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Shuyukh, it's really an honor to be here and to present to you today. So I'm going to get started. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. I didn't really know where to begin in terms of pitching this. So I'm going to start, like, right from the beginning, and I'm going to leave some time in the end for some discussion. And in the middle, we'll do a little bit of an interactive exercise. So I'm also given to understand. I mean, the audience here today are mostly um, imams and shuyukhs from around the continent, and I think probably around the world as well, around the continent of Africa and around the world. So you shuyukh do speak to people, and you have your communities and you talk to them, and so I think that in the session people would engage. I'm given to believe that people will be quite engaging, so we can get started, inshallah. And I really welcome your engagement. I want to welcome your questions as well. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. I'm not sure, Said, if you going to allow people to talk um, in the presentation, that's fine also. If anyone needs to put their hand up and ask a question as we go, that's perfectly fine with me. I'm not sure what the protocol is.
Imams and Muallimas can either ask in the comment section, or if they want to raise their hands, I'll unmute them. Shukran.
All right. Okay. So I'm going to get started here. Um, Please tell me if you can see my screen. Is that fine? All right. I'm seeing a thumbs up, so I assume it's fine, right? Okay, shukran. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. My topic today is on an interactive, so it's on how can we use AI to better serve our communities, and the title says interactive, so we are going to expect some interaction as well. Um, So I'm going to start from the beginning. We know already that artificial intelligence and AI is already a part of our daily lives. We interact with it way before 2022 or 2023 when we started playing with ChatGPT. This has been in our phones, it's been in our internet, um, and it's a lot more than how we understand artificial intelligence. So, in your banking apps, when it comes to fraud detection, AI is very pervasive there. If ever you've used Google Maps to navigate, AI is there. You'll notice in your mailbox, often emails will be directed automatically to spam because an artificial intelligence is automatically blocking some emails from coming into your mailbox. So, computer scientists have been able to train computers to do various things. If you've taken an Uber, that's based on an AI platform. Sometimes you open your phone. Many of these new phones these days, when you open them, they recognize your face and they can open. So they track all of these data points on your face, and they know what you look like. For various other things, search engines, and on YouTube, for example, those recommendations that come to you when you're on YouTube, those are all based on AI and machine learning platforms. So when I'm talking about AI, I'm not talking about only the large language models like ChatGPT or Google Gemini or things like that. You must just understand that it goes far broader than that. We only have access really to make use of one part of artificial intelligence effectively, the one that we can really manipulate, and that's the chat GPTs. So um, so the chat GPT is called a large language model. That's really the arm of AI that we're talking about here. So I'm going to quickly just go through a discussion on how these large language models are developed, because I think it's important for us to understand where they come from and what we can then potentially do with them. Because if you understand what makes them up, it gives us more resources to be able to manipulate them in the way we actually require it. So imagine that you've given a computer a small book to learn, right? So you've got a little book and you taught the computer just three sentences. The first sentence is the cat sat on the mat. Second sentence, the dog chased the cat. And the third sentence, the big dog ran fast. So very, very small data set with three sentences, right? Then a computer won't read these sentences like the way we would read it. What a computer does, it looks for patterns. It looks for patterns in its words, and it looks for searches ways how the words are connected to each other. So when we ask the computer, if we now tap into the computer, the cat, obviously the next word that the computer would say would assume in that sequence won't be uh, fast, or it won't be ran, because it already knows that when it sees the cat, either it must say associated with sat on the mat or was chased by the dog. Those are the only associations the computer would make if you mention the word cat, right? So if you just wrote the, for example, there's a lot more associations, right? If you said the computer would assume you're saying, you could say the cat, you could say the mat, the dog, the big dog. You can say a whole lot of things, right? So the computer is just essentially making these associations. It doesn't know how to talk. It doesn't know how to read sentences. Humans are the ones that read sentences. So we should be the ones to manipulate these LLMs to do things that we want them to do, right? So just try and understand that the computer isn't thinking. When you ask ChatGPT to do something, in inverted commas, it's thinking, but basically it's looking for associations between words, it's looking for patterns, and that sort of thing, right? It's based on something called probability. So these three sentences, the cat sat on the mat, the dog chased the cat, and the big dog ran fast, it's something called training data. So now we've trained the model on these three sentences, and we can ask it questions. Now, you could ask, if this was your LLM, you could ask, what did the big dog do? And the LLM would return and say, the big dog ran fast, that sort of thing. It's a very small training data set. But if you expand that training data, and this is what the OpenAI did, the company that owns ChatGPT and also Microsoft, Google, all of these companies that have large language models, what they've done is they've trained the data on very, very large data sets, right? And they have access to this data. So now if we add onto this training model something called natural language processing, and you may have heard this already, NLP, natural language processing. And this now trains the computer to understand language patterns, how humans talk, not only one language, but multiple languages. So I'm not sure if you've ever tried asking ChatGPT a question in your own home language. You can ask it in isiZulu, in Urdu, in Arabic, whatever, and it's able to respond to you in that language. Because something called natural language processing has been built into these large language models. So the computer can understand what the pattern of a language is in terms of the tense. I think you may have studied Arabic, so you know that the sentence construction in Arabic is very different to the sentence construction in English. So, like that, the computer learns these variations in sentence construction. That's called natural language processes. Processing it really just processes how natural languages work. So we train the computer to understand the rules of languages, any language, and now you put that And now when you input a query into the LLM, it responds in natural language. So let's build this up further, right? We take a set of training data and we expand it. Expand that training data with as much information that you can possibly gather. So billions and billions and trillions of data sets. Now you have something that's very, very powerful. You can essentially train it on all the data on the internet, right? So, as many pages of the internet that you can get your hands on. You train the model on something like that. Now you can imagine how powerful this model is. You can take it also and train it on as many academic writings as possible, academic papers, books, the works. And that's why if you ask ChatGPT now to give you to tell you something about I don't know, Shakespeare or something about a very ancient text, if it's able to respond to you, it means it's been trained on that model. It knows already what the text is about, and it can respond to you by making connections to that text and responding to you with natural language. Okay? And then also social media posts. So these large language models have also been trained on social media posts, and that's why Facebook, Meta, has a very powerful AI because they own Facebook, they own Instagram, they own WhatsApp. And they have lots and lots of data from people talking to each other on Facebook. They know how humans interact. They know what's a happy message, what's a sad message, when humans are depressed. So those models are very powerful. The Meta Facebook model is very powerful because of the data it has. And like just as an aside, that's also why the reason why Elon Musk bought Twitter and changed it to X because of the data that was sitting in Twitter. There was, troves and troves of data sitting in Twitter. Google has access to Google Search. They own YouTube. They own, this large emails and stuff, and that's why they have a very good large language model as well called Gemini. Um, so hopefully you can start to get an understanding of how large these data sets are and how powerful the artificial intelligence large language models are now. It started off, it really hit the market in like end of 2022 when we first saw ChatGPT. It's now been 3 years at the end of 2025, and steadily every few weeks there's a new update. These things are getting incredibly powerful. So the large language model can now draw on an incredibly broad data set in every different context and understand how to respond. It's trained not only on English language stuff, it's trained on Arabic language stuff, on anything that uh, the developers can get their hands on. But we can already see a problem here, right? Because a lot of the information on the internet comes from Europe, comes from America, and comes from the global north. Very little as a proportion of the internet comes from writings of people in the global south, like South America, in Africa, in parts of the marginalized world. Very little of the internet. They've contributed very little to the internet. So already you can see that your large language models will have a bias to Eurocentric, anglicized kind of text. So just be careful when you use these things. They don't include local voices. They don't include the marginalized voices. So please be careful, right? Don't take what you see from ChatGPT as the truth. There's elements of truth in it, but there's always another side of the story that hasn't been captured. So just keep that in mind. Unless you yourself build a large language model, which I'll show you how to do at the end of this. So this is the picture, what it looks like. You as a user will input a query. This query is sitting in your data set here. This brain is the data set. Basically everything on the internet, every book the computer engineers could get their hands on, it's all in here. This artificial brain will think about an answer and respond to you in natural language. Whatever language we're using, it will respond to you and you'll see it on your device, whether that's a computer or your cell phone or whatever the case is. Right. So let's get into a quick um, poll. So I just want to check. Shuyukh, are you able to scan this QR code? And Sayed, I'm going to ask you to please help me here. What you need to do is, there's a QR code on your screen. I think you can all see it. If you just point your cell phone to this QR code, it'll take you to a menti.com, a poll tool. If you can't scan the QR code, please point your browser, whatever browser you are using on your computer or your cell phone or whatever, just go to menti.com. It will ask you to input a code. You input this code here, 31932582. So I'll give you a minute to do that, and then we'll get into the session. Um, Sayed, could you please just let me know if this is working on your end, please?
Okay, well,
Um, So I think some people won't be able to get on. I think it caps you at about 50 or 55 people. So there will be a few participants who won't be able to get onto the Menti. But that's fine. I think inshallah just you can follow what's happening. It's not essential, but you can follow what's happening on the screen. I'll show you the data now. So Sayed, are you able to see the Menti screen?
yes, I'm
All
in
right.
the screen now. I can put it on my page now.
All right. So I'm going to share another screen with you. Okay. All right, Shukran. I can see some answers coming through already. So the first question is here. What are your opinions? There's a spelling error there. Sorry about that. What are your opinions and feelings about artificial intelligence? I'll give you a minute. Just on your Menti screen, just add a response. Just type. You'll see on your Menti screen. There's a place for you to add a word. Enter any word in there, please. Okay, so with 71 participants, we're expecting lots of responses here, inshallah. If you need the code again, just look at the top there, 31932582. Point your screen to menti.com and it'll bring you straight to this page
I did put the website in the comments if the
in the
imams need.
chat. Okay, yeah. All right, Jazakallah. So let's see what's coming up here. It's captivating, it's scary, beneficial, causing havoc, and that's true also. I think Uh, it's early to say, but it is pretty scary. Lovely, that's good. Alhamdulillah, people are using it. They using it well, I hope. Creative, we've got just about 10 10 responses, but there's 73 people in the chat. So please, we need to hear your answers.
I think for some imams, it might be difficult for them to log out of the Zoom. They're using their phone.
Oh, I see.
Let's see how far we get.
You can potentially minimize your screen and still do this. You can have Zoom on in the background, but okay, let's see. It's great, creative, scary. Some people are wary. Some people a lot of people are having a good time with it, so that's good. All right. Okay, so there's a bit of a mixed bag there, right? Alhamdulillah, we can keep going. I have just a few more questions. Useful, scary. I think we get the picture, right? Fear of privacy. That's a very important one. We should be afraid of privacy. Um, the tools are, if we don't stipulate to not take your data, the tools are taking your data. So whatever you're asking, whatever queries you are inputting into these programs, there's a little toggle to say don't use my queries to train the model. If you don't do that, then whatever you put into these programs, they are using it to train the model and to fine tune it. So just be careful of that. We want people to use the AI, but be wary that there is a privacy issue around it. And we can talk about that. But I'm going to go to the next one. The next slide is, and you'll see it, it'll come up, the question will come up so you can answer it. If you currently use AI for any task at all, which is your preferred tool? What AI tool do you use currently? Okay, all right. So good. All right. I think if you're using Meta AI, you're probably using it on your phone, on WhatsApp, um, Mid-Journey, okay. People are using it for proofreading. Okay, that's fine. So we are using most of the platforms available. Is anyone using the the AI on WhatsApp? Meta? There's one there, but doesn't seem to be too many. Um, okay. All right. I'm going to move to the next one. I think people are I just want to get an idea of the variety of tools that people are using. So we can see that there is. So, this is an interesting question. I think, I mean, I'm interested to see what comes out of this one. So the question is, can you rank what you currently use AI to do from most to least? Get the question? So, what do you use AI to do? And just rank them. So you can, on your screen, you'll see it coming up. Just rank them and we'll see how you do. To get an idea of what people are using this for. If you just click any one of these on your screen, it'll tell you, it'll automatically rank them. So I'm not sure if say it is recording, but that's fine. If you're not recording, then people can also share more freely, but whatever the protocol is.
She
Okay,
should
great.
start recording.
So a lot of people are using it for helping with assignments and projects. That is really a good use case as long as you use it well and um, so we find that university students are using it quite a bit, but there's also a lot of dishonest use. I'm sure that doesn't happen in this group, but if you use the AI, you must acknowledge that you're using it. You must acknowledge why you used it. I mean, I deal with undergrad students, and often there's a lot of unethical behavior around AI use. So we see mostly. Um, uh, the audience here is using it to help with assignments and projects. There's a lot of use in the learning more about Islam. Alhamdulillah, that's very good. Finding solutions for my community. creating lesson plans for my classroom, planning my talks and sermons, learning more about AI. All right, that's a good spread there, alhamdulillah, we can see. All right, there's just a few more interactive slides here. Let's get to the next one. Type an example of a typical Type an example of a typical prompt that you would use. Any prompt would do. So this is it's anonymous, right? No one will know what you're saying or what you're typing, but typically, what kind of prompt would you use when you use ChatGPT? So a lot of the questions now came up that you use it a lot for your assignments and you use it a lot to learn about Islam. Um, I'm not interested in your question, but put your question in. I'm looking more at the type of prompt that you use. So please, if you would indulge us, just put in a prompt that you would use, a typical prompt. All right. All right. Type it out as you would in a sentence, as you would in a sentence. So, all right. So you can rephrase the following. Generate for me a lesson plan for grade. That's Alhamdulillah, that's wonderful. Generate for me a lesson plan for grade 7. Um, Translations. I mean, you could use Google Translate for that, but that's fine. Um, all right. Let's get a few more on the screen. So let's see here. It says we will ask it to, can you help me with Islamic prompt about the journey to Makkah? All right. So I'm just trying to get an idea of the kinds of prompts that you're using, and I'll tell you why this is important because I'm going to get to how to actually prompt an AI shortly, and so you'll get a lot more out of it. Oh, this is a nice one. So you're asked to deliver a Jummah sermon on topic patience, write a structure with evidence from the Quran and authentic Sunnah. All right, and I hope that you get a good response from that. Um, and that's a good one. That's a good prompt. So a prompt like this, so when you're giving prompts, you need to give a lot of detail in your prompt. So the large language model can make those connections. Remember we spoke about in the beginning, it makes connections in texts. So if you don't stipulate that you're giving a Jummah sermon, the LLM won't know that you're giving a Jummah sermon. The context will be different. Um, the prompt is now asking it take your evidence from the Quran and authentic Sunnah. That's fine. I don't know whether the LLM would know what the authentic Sunnah is, but it's in your prompt. You may have to prompt it further after that because it can give you some very weak hadiths and things. All right, I'm going to move forward. I think this is the last one, and this is a creative one. So, in what way, the question is, in what way do you think an AI can most effectively benefit you in your daily responsibilities? So I think I want you to think really outside the narrow use cases that we've discussed already. The narrow use case, can you help me with this or can you help me with that? Let's think broader than that. Um, if you have access to a very powerful artificial intelligence, what do you think you can use it for? Like, can you, and I'm going to just give you an example, right? Can you use it to plot the homes of the needy children in your community? That's an example. Um, can it maybe um, help you to uh, help you to create an app so you can generate reports on your students in real time? Maybe. How about an AI that can help you create an app where you could get feedback from your community in real time and help you to theme the biggest challenges in your community and help you to address those challenges. Maybe something like that. Just think very creatively. We don't have to have too many answers here, but even if we have a few, because I want to try and work with that, please. You know, you can develop apps quite easily with this AI. So, all right. So, how to deal with different age groups in the masjid. So, how to set up a waqf with a blockchain component. That's interesting. So maybe you want to manage the zakah that comes in. Maybe you want to manage the lillah or sadaqah that comes into your masjid. You can easily develop an app to help you track this. Um, you know, like a you can do a budget. You can create a budget app or what. I'm not sure what. I think there is an IDP app. I've heard there is an IDP app, which is fine. But you can also create one for your own context. Um, so you really need to play around with these things. So helps to create a madrasa stats accessible to the absent students from distant places. Yeah, that's great. You can track statistics on your students if they are not in your classroom. There's various things you can do, right? So you must. I think the idea here is for us to understand that um, the large language models that we have are extremely powerful. You can use them to do much more than what you would do on a Google search. Don't assume that, don't restrict your queries to an AI, um, to the queries that a Google search or a Bing search can easily do. You can't ask it, a simple question like, what is the Faruz of Salah or something, because that is a simple Google can tell you. But you need to be a lot more creative. You need to ask a lot more deeper questions because these large language models are able to do a lot more with it. They're also very good at coding. I'm not sure, Shuyukh, if any one of you have done coding, but the models are now really good at coding. So you can use it to make apps. You can use it to develop web apps, all sorts of things because it can generate code. So I'll move on. I think that's the end of the presentation. That's the end of the Mentimeter, not end of the presentation. I have a few more things to show you. So another one here says, in a simple way and short way, how to manage a daily feeding program. This is an excellent one, right? So it's an excellent prompt. You can easily develop a web app on this particular prompt here. You can ask it, put in your parameters. This is the amount of food that comes in, this amount of students. Can you help me manage this? Maybe it can manage your grocery list, what you need to buy, and all sorts of things. So I think this is a very interesting prompt. Um, you can also easily automate your reporting. So this is a good one, right? So you can create a web app where it connects to your cell phone, and then as students, you test them, you immediately input their marks, and those marks feed automatically into a web app, and that web app generates your reports automatically. Very easy to do on a large language model. So think about these kind of questions when you are working with ChatGPT, when you're working with Gemini, whatever you use. Don't restrict yourself to questions that you can ask a search engine, right? So let's get away from that sort of thinking. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen briefly for 1 minute while I switch to the next screen. Are there any questions? I see a lot of questions in the chat here. So any questions, please put your hand up and see if we can take it.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Nakhooda. Can you give examples? For example, you mentioned the right way to input to prompt. So, for
Yes.
example, somebody instead of saying provide me assistance with regards to Jummah khutbah, maybe using the persona that Mr. ChatGPT, you are Sheikh Yasser Qadi, and you are preparing a Jummah khutbah for an audience of 1,000 people, and it is taking place in Durban, South Africa, and you wanted to prepare a certain type of khutbah. Maybe you can just help us with that.
Yes,
The
yes, yes.
examples of prompts.
Chef Bilal, shukr. Assalamu alaikum. Jay, I will go through that now. So I'll end the presentation with some context for prompts. So Jazakallah for bringing that up. So very quickly, we went through in the Mentimeter, we saw what people are using. So just be aware there are quite a few, right? We've used ChatGPT quite a bit. Personally, and this is my personal opinion, I would go with. I mean, I prefer Gemini these days. I think it's quite useful. It's based on the Google platform. It seems to be doing things a little bit better these days. The Copilot is the one from Microsoft, also really good. Claude is something that's a little bit of people don't use it that much, but it's very powerful, especially if you're generating code. Claude is especially good for statistics, analytics, that sort of thing. So if you want to build your web app to track your reports or the masjid feeding scheme or whatever, you could easily do that on Claude, right? So please try and use these things. Perplexity is a good one if you are, it's more of a search engine. It's a very smart search engine. It's not very much like your large language models like ChatGPT, but it's a very, very good search engine. I really encourage you to use it. Perplexity. DeepSeek is the one from China. It's fine. There's some privacy issues around it, but we don't really. I mean, I don't want to give my opinion here. So use it, don't use it. And I want to quickly, I'll end off with Notebook LM, but those are the main ones that you can use right now. I did see some hands up, so Said, would you please help me?
Gee, we got Imam Tawfiq Eli from Cape
Yeah.
Town. Like
Right.
to
Assalamu
ask.
alaikum. Assalamu alaikum
Walaikum
wa
salam.
rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So, all of these different, we can say, AI, um, your Gemini and ChatGPT, um, what do you choose? What is the best one to go by? There's so much. So,
Yeah,
yeah, it's a bit difficult to. I myself, I gravitate to Gemini when I use it these days. But what would be the best one to be at? Because I think Gemini, there's a lot of things that's free. And ChatGPT, there's more paywalls, I would say.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's my experience with it.
Hmm.
Yeah, so
Yeah. No, shukran for the question. I'm with you on there. I also gravitate to Gemini these days. I, I mean, I wouldn't trust any of these companies, but I seem to trust Google's Gemini and Microsoft a little bit more these days. Um, Simply because these are public companies and they are more accountable than ChatGPT. It's a private company, and they're not as accountable as some of these larger ones. So to your question, I think it rests very much on your use case. So if you are generating images and things, then you would mostly use Midjourney or you would use Gemini because Gemini does really good images. ChatGPT seems to be a bit more expensive, but it's also very good. If you are developing apps, writing code, I would strongly suggest you use Claude. Claude is much better at doing that sort of thing. Personally, I use most of them, and if I reach the limits of one in terms of what it's capable of doing, and it doesn't give me an answer that I want, I would move on to another one. So remember that these things are trained on different data sets. Um, Google is at the moment, they came up with an update this week, and that update has given them really leadership in the space. That Google Gemini 3 is a leader in the space. It's trained on huge amounts of data, and I think it's gonna really take it away. But I think my advice to you would be to try all of them. Sometimes for one use case, you would find one gives you a lot better response than another. Um, but yeah, it's a matter of preference. And fortunately for us, they're competing with each other. So they keep getting better to try and outdo each other, and it serves the user, because we're getting better responses. If you remember what images ChatGPT was generating 3 years ago, terrible compared to the ones that they're generating now. So yeah, I think it's a matter of preference. And if you've got a subscription, then naturally you would use the one you subscribe to. Um, I know a lot of companies are using the Copilot because they're in the Microsoft environment. They have Microsoft Word, Excel, and all of those things. So they would naturally buy the Copilot because it plugs in very well with their systems already. But yeah, I think Chef, it's just a matter of preference. But I would suggest that you don't stick to one. Use all of them. If especially if you don't pay for it, if you don't have a subscription, then you run out of credits on one, then you switch to another, and that's what I do. Um, Particularly because I work with students and I try to give students tools to the free resources because they can't afford it. So there's no point in me using an expensive tool and students can't reach the tools that I'm using. So I try to stick to the free ones. I'm going to move on
Khair,
quickly
inshallah.
because we're running out
Jazakallah
of
khair.
time.
One
Okay.
more question, Dr. Nakhooda. So, for
Yeah.
example, you have 11 labs. Now, 11 labs, you can take an English lecture
Hmm.
and they charge you per minute. And you can call it, dub it, translate it, etc., into Arabic, and you wouldn't
Hmm.
realize that the person is not speaking Arabic, but originally they were talking English, right? Now,
Hmm.
11
Hmm.
labs is very expensive.
Hmm.
Do you know of another option that one can use for the translation, for the dubbing of these audio lectures?
So there are a few. 11 Labs is the best one. There are others, but you will probably get glitches in them. I could send them to you because I don't can't call on them right now, but I have been keeping a list of these things. I could give you some suggestions after. Maybe I can email you or WhatsApp you or
Fair,
something.
fair, perfect.
That would be okay,
Jazakallah khair.
inshallah. Um, but 11 Labs is the best one. You won't get any glitches, and I don't think you want glitches when you're translating. So I think in that case you probably need to use a paid version. Although Google Translate has gotten really good, so you could translate the text. So what people do is, I know what students do is they translate a text into their language, and then they feed that into a Gemini and ask Gemini to read it to them. So that's what. So it's a two-step process. Rather than getting like 11 labs will do the entire thing automatically, what these guys do is they feed an English text and ask it to translate it into Zulu, and then ask another AI to read it for them in that Zulu language. So that's one way around it. So very quickly, if you're doing research, and I know many of you would be doing research, these are the ones we use at university. For data analytics, Julius is pretty good. Elicit is a really good model. Connected Papers will connect all of these scientific papers for you, academic papers for you in terms of how they related to each other. So try and use it. You can take a screenshot of this page and the one before that. I can go back quickly. Um, I really encourage you to use it because it gives you access. Most people didn't have access to um, academic papers before. But these now give you access to academic papers. And there are a lot of academic papers around, the Islamic topics that you would give your community. But now you can base some of those sermons or some of those khutbahs on actual academic papers. So it gives you a bigger repertoire of resources to choose from. And I encourage you to use some of these academic papers. You don't have to. I mean, I don't know what the opinion is about that, but it's there for you to use, right? I think we can make up our minds. Um, right. So the last thing I want to talk about before I move on to a tool that I want to show you is how to write a good prompt. So Sheikh Bilal mentioned already some of the elements, and this is summarized. I took it from the internet. Um, you can expand on this quite a bit, how to write a good prompt. But as a snapshot, when you're writing a prompt, we shouldn't, again, prompt an LLM like we ask a search engine because we're doing a disservice to ourselves. We're not making use of this thing. The first thing you must be is very specific. Like, as Sheikh Bilal says, be specific. I think Sheikh Bilal, in your prompt, you mentioned who you are and who's your audience and what the reason for it is and what the topic is. And so, as much information as you can, because remember that large language model, that AI is making those connections. So, the more connection points, just think of it in your brain, like when you're creating these connections in your brain. The more connections you have, the greater the picture you will be able to produce. So, the more specific you are, the more connections this computer can make. So you must be very specific. Tell it exactly what you want. So one prompt earlier we saw in the session today was asking about patience. Okay, fine. So your talk is about patience, be very specific. Patience, fine. What does patience mean? Um, what sources do you want the AI to draw from? You can even upload a source. So you can upload a few past sermons, you can link it to a website that you think is useful, and then ask it to generate. So don't just ask it to give you a talk on patience. It's going to give you a generic thing that's, you're going to lose your audience. But you must say, I am a, you can, okay, let's get through this first. Be specific, understand the context. If you are sitting in Zimbabwe, if you're sitting in South Africa, give that context. I'm sitting in a rural masjid in Zimbabwe, in Harare. So it doesn't give you a response that's pertinent to Oxford or I don't know, wherever, California. It's giving you context to your audience in Harare, in Johannesburg, in wherever you are, right? So must give it context. My audience is 12-year-old kids. So it doesn't give you a response that's going to now target 30-year-old males. It'll give you context for 12-year-old kids. So be specific. Otherwise, you're not going to get a good response. Be very creative. You need to understand that these large language models are very intelligent in inverted commas, and they draw from a large data set. So you can be creative. Avoid using fancy words. It doesn't help. It distracts the LLM. So be specific and choose your words correctly. You can also, and this is an important one, if you are unsure, you can put your prompt in any way you want into an LLM. And the first step you do is ask it to sharpen your prompt. Say, this is my prompt. Can you please make it better for me? This is my context. And it will actually write that prompt for you. Then you say, right, this is my prompt. Now give you a response. So you use the AI to train the AI. That's like a neat trick, especially if your English is not good. Um, you can ask the AI to improve your English before you actually ask the prompt. And you can even upload this picture on there and say, here's my prompt, but help me to get the context right. Help me to be specific. Help me to. Then it will ask you these questions. You can answer these questions, and then it will develop a prompt for you. And I'm happy, Shuyuk, to come back and we can even do a whole exercise on prompting. I'm happy to do that. Specify the tone. At the end of your prompt, you can tell it uh, in your response, make it humorous or make it what else would you say? Make it in a very formal tone. If you're writing you're going to give a formal lecture. My audience is the president of the country. Make it very formal, that sort of thing. Test and tweak, number 6. So if it doesn't come out right, you can always go back and say, that's very good, but and give it feedback. So that's very good, but I want it more in this context. Can you give me more information on X, Y, and Z? But again, and I want to stress this, don't just put your prompt in. If you have a specific use case and you are giving a talk, a khutbah, please upload some content, link it to a talk, Yasser Qadhi's talk or whatever, link it to something, Sheikh Bilal's talk, upload a transcript of a bayan or of a khutbah, and then say, using this, generate me a new one for my 12-year-old, for my 20-year-old students in a halaqah in Cape Town. This is the context. These students are troubled in whatever, okay, I think you get the picture. Right. So while I move to the next screen, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to take it. I've got only 5 minutes left, but I want to show you a tool that you can potentially use. The one question says, are there great benefits to the paid version? I think there are benefits definitely to the paid version. Especially, I mean, the main thing with the paid version is you don't run out of credits and you can keep prompting it. But again, it depends on your use case. If your use case isn't that detailed and complicated, then you can get away with the free version. But if you want to integrate and you can get the enterprise version that you want everyone to use, and you want everyone to get into this ecosystem of either ChatGPT or Gemini, then of course, please use the paid version. So it starts being trained on your own data. So, for example, if IDP has a subscription to ChatGPT, then the more questions you ask it of ChatGPT, the more it's trained on your questions. And then if someone in Zimbabwe is asking a question about inheritance and someone in Johannesburg is asking a question on inheritance, then it can make those links. So the more you use your own ecosystem, the better your own ChatGPT will become. So I'm not sure if IDP subscribes to one, but if you do, then it's in your interest to all start using it and use it well in the way we described today. Any questions before I move on to my last point, please? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands there. Said, are we okay? I've got 5 minutes.
There is a question here. It says, is there a probability of being hacked?
There's always a probability of being hacked. I don't think your concern is being hacked through AI. You can be hacked if you're on the internet, you can be hacked. That's just the bottom line. You must have a very good software to protect yourself. Most of the over-the-counter ones work unless someone is like intentional about hacking your particular computer. I don't know why they would do that, but generally, it's like, fraudsters are out there, and if sometimes they by chance will get into your computer, then, unfortunately, that's the case. We have to deal with it. It's like, data can be stolen all the time. There's nothing we can do about it. But there's no increased risk, if that's your question. There's no increased risk of being hacked if you are on an AI platform. That's not the case. If you are connected to the internet, your chances of being hacked is just equally high. Um, okay, so I'm going to move on to my next screen. I want to, where is this thing? So I'm not sure if you've seen this thing called Notebook LM. Have you seen it? Has anyone seen Notebook LM? Chef Bilal, have you used it maybe?
No, I've not used it. I've heard of it,
Okay.
haven't used it.
Yeah. Okay, so okay, inshallah, this is a very good tool because the usefulness of Notebook LM. So it's a Google thing. You just type Notebook LM and it takes you to this. You sign in with your Google account because it's a Google um, platform, right? So the usefulness of Notebook LM is that uh, you load content onto it, and then it only responds based on the content that you give it. So it doesn't access the internet. Uh, if you ask it something, if you put a particular set of scripts in here and you ask it a question that's outside of that script, it won't be able to answer that question for you. So I find this particularly useful. I ask my students to use it. I can put all my data on here, and that's the data it will be trained on and nothing else. So I find it very useful. So I've just created one for the purpose of this workshop. I use it now and again. I mean, I'm not a scholar of the deen. I mean, I learn from everyone else, but sometimes I can ask basic questions in this particular notebook, Adam. So there's a various features on here. It can put a podcast together for you. I mean, unfortunately, it's all in in an American accent, but it's there. You can do a podcast, you can do a video overview. Very useful. I've been playing around with this particular one. So I created this one for this workshop. I just call it script, but I put in a PDF of Tafsir al-Jalalain. I've put in whatever I could find of a PDF of Sahih Muslim and a summarized version of Sahih al-Bukhari. Put that in here. I can click the source I want, and then I can ask a question. So for example, I can click Al Jalalain and ask a question about whatever, and it will only search in Tafsir Al Jalalain for my answer. So I find this like particularly useful, especially like if IDP has lots of documents that you want to sift through. You can put all your documents into Notebook LM and then just chat with. So this is your own personal chatbot. Um, I know if you've got the paid version of ChatGPT, you can probably do something similar, but I find that this Notebook LM is exceedingly good. So this is just a summary at the top, but what I've done is you can ask a question. So I said, using the selected sources, can you put together a brief talk that I can give to students on the rules of inheritance? Use an example of a son, one of three brothers, who has two sisters, and he passes away, leaving both his parents. So basically, now I've clicked the sources I wanted to look at. It will just search these sources and give me, the inheritance, the rules of inheritance. Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether it's right or wrong because this is not a topic that I'm familiar with, but I think you who know that better. But I think it's a very useful tool. And I'm happy to share this with you. I can just share this notebook with whoever needs it. Um, and you can do this, and I can then upload any other PDFs that you think is useful, and we can grow this notebook together. So, it can be something that the IDP can use. You can always dip into this thing, ask it the questions you want. It can do a podcast for you. I don't know if I can do this quickly. Let me just check, right? While we wait, it's generating a podcast for us now. It'll take a few minutes because there's quite a few sources. Let's only take that source and say audio overview. And let's see, you can do all right. Anyway, it's going to take some time. You can do a video overview, a mind map, all sorts of things with the data you have. So, Shayuka, I'm quite happy to share this with you if you wanted. I'll just, if say it gives me your email addresses, unfortunately, manually, I can input everything in there. But give me an idea of how we can improve this model so that we don't have to always go to outside to ChatGPT and stuff. We can have our own little AI trained on the data that we know is authentic. So if you have an authentic kitab in a PDF format or an authentic website, we can train our own AI only on that data so we can, cut out the noise. And when we create our khutbahs or whatever, it will be based on the sources that we know are authentic. Um, so I'm going to stop there. It's 9 o'clock. If you have any questions, we can have a discussion
Question,
now.
Dr. Nakhooda. Question. So, for
Yes, yes.
example, on this notebook LM, let's say, for example, we at the Imam Development Program, in terms of fundraising, in terms of marketing, in terms of content we receive from Imams. If we fed this thing, all of that content, I don't know, can you feed it our videos? Can you feed it our social media accounts, etc.? And then 9 months later, there's an imam, his madrasa needs something. So we just give it a prompt, provide for us a marketing plan related to imam from country X, related to XYZ, and it puts everything together. Is that possible?
Yes, it's possible, very possible. And that's why Notebook LM is good because it can store all of that data. There are some caveats to it because it is limited in the amount of sources it can take. So I think when you start uploading it, let's see here, right? So let's see if you want to add a source. It can take You can link it to a website, you can link it to YouTube. So this is new, it wasn't there. I think this has come now as an update. You can link it to a Google Drive and you can link it to copy text. So you just upload the sources on here. I think it takes a maximum of 50. So these are the supported files, right? PDF, audio, all of these things. And it's able to read these things. This is a very powerful tool. Google doesn't market it that well. I think it takes a lot of energy in Google's cloud servers to run this thing, and that's why they don't market it that much. But it's very useful. Again, understand that ethically it does take a lot of energy to run this thing. So when you do run it, just select the sources that you actually need and not everything because it's quite energy intensive. But to answer your question, Sheikh Bilal, you can do that. We can test it to see whether it will work and how well it does work. I haven't used it to that extent, but theoretically that would be possible, yes. And I think that's a very, very good use case. Um, The last I checked, this thing only takes about 50 documents. So one way around that is to combine your PDFs. So if you've got 10 PDF documents that are 2 pages each, combine them into one. Like, your annual reports, put them all into one document so you don't have, 10 documents, you have one document, and that frees you up for nine more, that sort of thing. So that there are some ways to work around it, but we can always try, right? And as these
Last
models
question,
get,
inshallah.
sorry.
Last question, inshallah, is that I use or we have access to the paid version of ChatGPT, right? But I noticed that many a times it takes very long. It's still thinking, it takes very, very long. What version or which of these AI options is fast and smart and, works very, very quickly? So that's the first part of that question. Second part of the question is that what we see and what we hear about these large data centers under the ocean and in this place and in that place, etc. What's some of the harmful effects of all of this here on the environment? How much of electricity is required for this chat GPT's brain to be thinking?
Hmm. To answer your first question, Sheikh, uh, I think ChatGPT and some of the other models as well, they've got an option for you to request a quick answer or one that requires deep research. So you can toggle that. Um, and if you say deep research, it starts thinking more deeply. And I'm going to say this in inverted commas because is it really doing that? Sometimes it just, they can program this thing to take longer to give you the impression that it's thinking more deeply. Sometimes the extent of your prompt, if your prompt is too large, it does take longer to think. But when you say it takes too long, I'm not sure how long you're talking about. Like, from my experience, usually in maximum a minute, you would get a response, 30 seconds to a minute. I haven't had a prompt that took longer than that. Unless you've uploaded lots of content and you're asking a very detailed question, Chef. Um, but I hope that it doesn't take much longer than that. Like, I mean, I don't know, but to your next question, the energy requirement, yes, definitely a concern. Ethically, we shouldn't be just willy-nilly using this. If we can do a Google search and you can ask a search engine, do that. You don't need to always come to an AI because AI does use a lot of energy, and this energy must come from somewhere. So there's very large data centers now that require huge amounts of energy, and they are putting on these solar farms and things. And this week, there's they're trying to now harvest put they're trying to put satellites into space to harvest energy directly from the sun and beam it as electricity to Earth. So there's a prototype already tried. We know it works. So very soon we're going to have energy harvesting bodies in space, directly harvesting energy from the sun and beaming it as electricity onto Earth because there's simply not enough resources to power these things. Um, so we just keep that in mind. If we, and what happens is with climate change, it's always the most vulnerable that suffer. So, if these data centers are using lots of electricity in the US or in the Europe or whatever, then as climate changes there, it must change necessarily in Africa as well to balance off. And then we're seeing the drying of the deserts here, and we're seeing all of these climate change effects happening here. There's nothing for free. You're using AI, you think it's free. There's nothing free. It's having an effect somewhere. Um, and if our crops are not growing, then we know why. It's us that are utilizing these resources on the planet. Um, but that shouldn't stop us completely. I think just be mindful of it. We just, uh, be careful, I think. Any other questions? Anything else I could help people with? So a question says, what about the language barrier? Especially some response saying we don't have a system to respond to your language, which will end up affecting the message. Yeah, no, sometimes there's a language barrier, especially if you have a very a language that's spoken by very few people, a very small group of people, then there's no way that the AI could have been trained on that language because there's simply not enough data to train that any AI on that particular language. So I think as the model grows, so Google this week or last week released something that they are trying to um, train their models on as many languages as possible. So they're going on this drive to record people in the remotest parts of the world speaking, and they're going to use their AI to now, create content based on any sort of marginal language. So I think it's just a matter of a year or two when you will find your language there. I don't think ChatGPT is doing that. I'm not sure that Microsoft is doing it, but certainly Google is doing it. And in time, inshallah, we should be able to cover these languages. I know when the AI just came out, it was very limited in its language. It could only speak English. It was making up stuff, but that's out of the question now. It's much better at these things. So the
خير
question
إن
is,
شاء الله. حياك الله دكتور ناكودا. بارك الله فيك. جزاك الله خير. I think we've gone beyond our time limit now. Jade, I'm not sure if Said is still here. Jade. على كل حال ما شاء الله جزاك الله خير for the session دكتور ناكودا, and it was good having a session on this topic إن شاء الله. جيد جزاك الله خير. يا مشايخ إن شاء الله the notes or whatever websites or AI models and options there are, inshallah, Dr. Nakhooda sends us the PDF for a document and we'll share it with all of the Imams, inshallah. Barakallah feek, jazakumullah khairan to Dr. Nakhooda and everyone else. Hayyakumullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
right, so.
حياكم الله يا مشايخ. ما شاء الله. Program is over. ما شاء الله. Where's these مشايخ? Where's these people? I can't see their faces. Where's their faces? Where's their faces? Why they are making niqab from us? Where is this mashayikh? They can't unmute themselves. Amiri, Mshali.
نعم السلام عليكم.
ما شاء الله ما شاء الله. Oscar Piri.
وعليكم
إبراهيم
زين
زبير ما
مشالي.
شاء الله.
عليكم
الله حياك. Party now is Rehma also ما شاء الله.
ما شاء الله.
Now the party is starting. ما شاء الله. حياكم الله. You see, we are here.
السلام عليكم شيخ
We are
إسماعيل.
here playing soccer. We are here playing soccer with the IDP team. And while we are playing the soccer, we are listening to the lecture, etc. Subhanallah. حياكم الله.
From Nigeria.
Yeah, put the video. We can't see you. Fadilu.
Yes.
Fadilu, ما شاء الله.
Yes.
السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليكم.
من جازة. حياك الله.
حياك الله.
عبد الرحمن أحمد تيجاني. Ali Asoa. Some of you I don't know. Some of like Ali Asoa, I don't know who he is. Hey, I don't think he's an IDP Imam. But Ahlan wa Sahlan.
He's new. He's new. He's new Imam.
What about me,
Sheikh
Ismail?
I see your name is coming up as Rehema in Google. Rehema Googie. Hey, wait, Rehema Googie. That is our Sheikh from Sheikh Alfan Khamis, that one.
No.
Oh yeah, from Kenya. حياك الله. Big Sheikh, mashallah.
عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Salam. حياكم الله. خلاص يا مشايخ. MashaAllah. Some of you, your camera, your nur is so strong. I don't think my camera it can manage. Your nur is very strong. Ibrahim Zubair, your nur is shining too bright. Yeah, mashallah. From Chilunga. You are still alive. MashaAllah. Frank Chilunga is still alive. Alhamdulillah. Make shukr, everybody. Frank Chilunga he is still alive. Alhamdulillah. MashaAllah. MashaAllah. خير يا مشايخ. خلاص نحبكم في الله. بارك الله فيك. Don't forget يا مشايخ, tomorrow is Saturday. Jayid, go and do some da'wah, visit the hospital, do some street da'wah, do some program with your madrasa students. Don't forget, it is now ending November, it is starting December. Do a jalsa, a hafel at the end of the year with your students. Today, alhamdulillah, our madrasa here in Durban, we had like a small hafel with all of the students. It was very good. One read Quran, one read a nasheed, etc. They were very, very happy, alhamdulillah. Then we bought them a small pizza and they were very happy. We need to instill the love of Islam and the love of the madrasa in the hearts of the children, ya mashayikh. Why? Because YouTube is calling them, Instagram is calling them, TikTok is calling them, etc. Jayid? So we have to work hard. Barakallah feek. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hayyak Allah, Bilal Patrick. A'anak Allah. Allah be with you. Allah be with you. Allah protect you, Bilal. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum wa barakatuh. MashaAllah. MashaAllah. MashaAllah.
Assalamu alaikum.